In this lesson we're going to address the issues required to establish wall cells. A wall cell is a poured concrete cell in the blocks where there's a rebar reinforcing rod inside that poured cell. What I've done, I've taken bonus house foundation 2 drawing. I've added another layer, windows and doors layer. I added a window and I dimensioned a window from the corner, and I saved this as bonus house foundation 3. We're going to use this to establish the cells required along this wall segment. So let's go ahead and zoom in and get started. Here we demonstrate a nominal 39-inch window opening, which is 2.5 blocks. And it's also 7 blocks from the corner of the house. So if we do the lookup on 7 blocks, you can see that 7 blocks is 9 foot 2 and 2/8 inches. 9 foot 2 and 1/4 is 2/8. So we're accurate here. The other side of the window has about the same distance for symmetry. So what we're going to do is establish the wall cells required for this wall segment. First I got to switch to the cells layer now for my drawing entities. I'm going to place a cell. A cell has to be in each corner. We'll put a cell here and a cell over in the other corner. So let's get a symbol which will be the cell. So we'll make a cell, just a circle with crosshairs on it. So let's go up here and select our tools. We'll make it an 8-inch diameter circle. So we'll just establish a radius 4 inches. And we'll center the thing on a grid so we can set everything up. So now we have the circle. The cell layer just turns out to be blue, so it's a blue circle. Next we're going to put 2 crosshairs across that. So we'll go back up now, select a line, and we'll just do between cells again. A line here. We'll also put a line between these 2 cells. And we just temporarily do this to get that stupid reference point out of our vision and view, field of view, and we'll delete that. So now we have a circle with 2 crosshairs on it. That will be our cell location device. So let's make a block out of that. Go down here and create a new block from existing entities. Notice on our block list we already have these blocks. So we're going to add another block now, and we want to select with the window. So that's our selection. Choose the first edge. So the reference point will be on an outside corner. The reference point will be the center of the circle. So that's our reference point. And the name of this block will be cell marker. So we say OK. Now that entity was turned into a cell marker block. Setting cell markers can be a very difficult task until you learn that the only reasonable way to set cell markers is by using your relative 0 point. So let's do that. Let's zoom in down here in this corner. We're going up here and click the snap tools. We're going to set the relative 0. We're going to lock it to this line and set it approximately midway on this line. So the critical dimension is this line here. We're going to measure from this wall. So this part is up and down isn't nearly as important as locking to that line. So we set our relative reference point there. Yeah. And then we go back and lock. I want to make sure it was set. And then we lock the relative reference point. Now the relative reference point won't move. If you notice, it's locked. Will not move. This gives us a nice starting point. So what we can do is back to freehand for a moment. We're going to get a cell marker. Angle 0 factor 1, da-da-da, just one of them. We're going to place it right here for the first one. Then for the next one, we're going to go to our lookup table. And we know this is 9, so half of 9 is 4.5 feet. So we're going to go to our lookup table for a second. Looking for 4.5 feet to the cell center. And nearest is 4, 3, and 2/8. So we use 4, 3, and 2/8 to the cell center. Come back here. Back where we were. We're right here. We're going to do spacebar at. Can't even type at anymore. At. X, we're going to go. Jeez, forgot the number. 4 foot 3 and 2/8 inches. 4 foot 3 and 2/8 inches. We're going to go 4 foot 4 times 12 plus 3 plus 2/8 inches. And Y will stay on 0. So that one's been placed right there. Our next one is 7 blocks. And inside 7 blocks, come up here, 7 blocks, 8 foot 10 and 3/8 inches. 8 foot 10 and 3/8 inches. So here we're going to do another at 8 foot 8 times 12 plus 7 plus 3/8 inches. Y will be 0. We place that one. So I zoom down a little bit so we can see this better. So this is 7 blocks to here. 2.5 makes it 9.5 blocks. We want the next cell after 9.5 blocks. So we go look that up. And 9.5 blocks. The next cell is 12 feet 9 and 4/8. 12 feet 9 and 4/8. So we hit space bar at 12 feet, which is 12 times 12 inches, plus 9 plus 4/8, and Y dimension is 0. And that placed that one. We know there's 7 blocks approximately between this point and this point. So we'll just go 3 blocks right here and place the next one. So 9.5 and 3 is 12.5 blocks, and the cell after that. So go back to our table. 12.5 blocks. The cell after that is 16 feet 8 and 6/8. 16, 8, 6/8. 16 feet at 16 times 12 plus 8 plus, what was the last digit? 12.5. 8 6/8. 6/8. Once again, the y dimension is 0. So now we have that one. We know the whole wall is 16 blocks. So we're just going to do 16 blocks in this corner here and then the next cell after that. So we go to our lookup table, 16 blocks. The cell after it's 21 foot 3 7/8. 21 foot 3 7/8. So at 21 foot plus 3 plus 7/8. And no y offset. So now we set the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells required for this wall segment. We did it all using the keyboard. So let's break out of that command here. I placed this by mistake earlier. Get rid of it. So at this time we have all the cells defined for this wall segment. As you continue on, you would simply continue on from that same reference point to set these items here, any windows, doorways, whatever, until you get to this corner. Notice there has to be one in this corner and this corner both. Every corner requires a cell, rebar cell. So all the way across the face of that page, then you can start from this corner and go up, measure in that direction. So you want to measure all your cells along one wall segment from one given point. That way, if there's any a little bit of air, you won't keep adding air to more air and more air. It all starts from this point. You mark them tick, 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 whatever, down to the end from this point. Same way going along this wall. You tick them off from this corner. When you get up here, I would go up to this corner over here and tick them off this way from this corner. Tick them off this way down from that corner. So at the time we process, it's just a matter of going to lookup tables, using your your relative reference point that's locked, and setting everything relative to that. So that pretty much covers that subject. Now that we place the rebar cell locations for this wall segment, we'll go ahead and set up dimensions, because the person that actually builds the forms has to mark each location where the rebar falls. That way when they're pouring the concrete, someone knows where to drop the rebar so it falls in the right position along the forms. So I'm going to zoom in even tighter here for a moment until we get things set up. We're going to use the dimension, horizontal dimension. Go to dimension, like I said, horizontally. We're going to snap to intersections. So we're going to start right here, this intersection. We're going to measure to this next intersection. Notice that's 3 15/16. We're going to offset the dimension up here so we can see it later. So that's the first one. Next dimension will go from the same intersection down to this intersection. And then you notice it's that long. We just continue on across here. We have to zoom out. Start the dimension from the same intersection. Right down to this intersection. Bring him up here. Move on across the page. I'll get them all in here. And eventually you get to the last one. I'll skip the middle one so don't waste all your time. Eventually you get to the last one here. Notice that's getting harder to see, so we'll zoom in a little bit on that. So right here on that point, we'll take him up. Now that I zoomed in, I can't see. It's got to back out, place dimension. So as you can see, it gives us all of our dimensions now. So this one right here is 21 3 7/8. That was 16 blocks in the next cell. So we'll just check on that. 16 blocks next cell, 21 3 7/8. You should check each one of these dimensions because you don't want to mess this up. If you get it off more than just a couple of inches, then you're going to have a problem with the block being in the way. So there is some slop. You can go a couple of inches out of alignment. But you want a drawing which includes all these dimensions so the person that has to drop the rebar knows where to drop the rebar on the forms. So to print out this particular drawing, you want to get rid of things you don't need. So we'll go down to our layer list. First we'll save the updated drawing number 3. What we can do, we can turn off the footer. We don't need to see that. We can turn off all the corner details. Don't need to see that. And we leave in the windows. You need to see that. So now the drawing makes more sense when you look at it. We look at a section of it over here in the corner. Someone that's building the forms knows exactly what's going on now. He knows where each rebar should fall in the footer. Notice it takes up a lot of space. You have a lot of dimensions. You'll probably have 24 dimensions across here. So you may have to resort to putting some dimensions down here on the outside. But I would not eliminate these dimensions here. They're important. So then when you do the other walls, you got to put the dimensions someplace else. So you have to figure that out as you're laying out your original drawing, your initial drawing layout. You want room on each end or each side to place all these dimensions. Another option you can do, you can reduce the size of these numbers up here. You can go up here and select your edit, current drawing preferences. You make your dimension text heights smaller. If you make them smaller, then that gives you more room for more dimensions. So you have to figure out based on your drawing conditions what text height you want for your dimensions. I purposely made these higher than normal. 4 inches will be more than adequate if you print out on 11 by 17. If you're printing this on 8.5 by 11, then you need the 6-inch dimensions to make them legible. So your final drawing should be on 11 by 17 paper for everything we've set up here. And once you do that, then this will all be legible. You can string them all the way across. Same with the top up here. Put those dimensions on the inside down through here, and they should all fit. And the guy that places the rebar markers, he's the one that needs these dimensions. Two other options you consider for placing all these dimensions is you could put the dimensions themselves on a different layer, a layer different than the actual cells symbols. That way you could turn on layer X and put on all the dimensions for this wall. You could turn that off, turn on layer Y and do all the dimensions along this vertical wall. So you'd have 4 different layers just containing these dimensions, and all of these cells would still be on the cells layer. That's one option. Another option is to have different versions of this Foundation 3 drawing. You could have one version with just these dimensions for these cells. You can save another version with just the vertical dimensions on this side, another version with vertical dimensions on the right side, etc. So you have 4 different versions. I would prefer to consider the layers as a better option. That way you only have one drawing and you have 4 different layers with just dimensions. You can turn off those dimension layers whenever you need to. Get them out of your way. So I just want to add that as consideration for how to get around all these dimensions piling up on one piece of paper. So that's how you set up your cells. It's time consuming, but it's extremely important that you get it right. So this concludes this lesson.